His hand wraps around her throat in the middle of the mall. Not in a back alley. Not behind a locked door. Right here, under the bright gold lights of the atrium walk, in front of a fountain that keeps pouring water like nothing in this world is on fire. Tajana rows back, hits the glass railing. One hand claws at his wrist. The other arm swings low and tight across the round swell of her belly. 8 months of life, she is trying to shield from the man who is supposed to love them both. A shopping bag drops somewhere behind her. Tissue paper floats to the floor. A woman screams. 2 teenagers go stone still. The whole corridor freezes like a photograph taken at the wrong second. Lucan Pierce does not look like a man losing control. His jaw is locked. His grip is deliberate. His eyes hold the cold, focused look of someone finishing an argument that started long before today. Hi viewers, if you have ever watched someone smile in public and hurt someone in private, hit the subscribe button right now and drop a comment below telling us what you think Tajana should do next. Your answer might change how this story ends. Tajana's heel scrapes the polished marble. Her vision starts narrowing from the edges. She can feel her son moving inside her, a desperate rolling pressure, and the fear that hits her is not just for herself. It is for him. Then a voice rips across the corridor like a thunderclap. Get your hands off her now. Heavy boots pound the floor. A uniform charges through the crowd, badge catching light, one hand already reaching. The face behind that badge stops Tajana's heart for a completely different reason. She knows that face. Brecken Holt. Her cousin, the one she cut off 3 years ago, the one she blamed, the one she swore she would never call again. He tears Lucan off her with both arms, and Lucan stumbles sideways, breathing hard, nostrils flaring. And then he smiles. Not at Brecken. At Tajana. And says 4 words that send ice straight through her chest. Tell them what's in your bag. 2 hours earlier, Tajana stood in the mall restroom and stared at herself in the mirror under flat white light. The baby shower was still going on 1 floor above her. Harpist, 3-tier cake, donors in tailored blazers congratulating Lucan Pierce on his legacy, like she was the building permit, not the person. She pressed a hand against her stomach. Her son moved, solid, real. She looked at the bag on the hook behind her. Inside it, between prenatal pamphlets and a pack of gum, sat a manila folder, account statements, wire transfer screenshots, 2 fake invoices tied to a shell company Lucan thought she would never find, and a handwritten note for an attorney whose name she had memorized from a church friend who believed in quiet exits. The bleeding had been heavier since morning, not enough to flood, enough to terrify. She had been ignoring it because today had to finish clean. She opened the folder, counted every page, counted them again. Then she texted 2 people. The attorney, I have everything, leaving in 15 minutes. Then a single word to a number she had not touched in 3 years. Today. She pressed send before she could talk herself out of it. In the ambulance later, Brecken would ask her one question no paramedic thought to ask. Why would your husband care more about what's in your bag than whether you're breathing? This is who Lucan Pierce was. She did not fall for him because she was weak. She fell for him because he was precise. He was the first person who ever named what she did correctly, watched her manage a collapsing event schedule for 2 hours and said, "The way you handled that, I've seen grown men lose a room doing exactly that. You didn't lose a single person." Nobody had ever seen her work and called it by its right name before. That was how it started, not with charm, with accuracy. Not a man who broke furniture, a man who rearranged facts. He did not call her stupid. He asked why she made simple things hard. He did not ban her family, he sighed after every visit until she stopped inviting them. He moved money between accounts and then asked what she had bought. When she gently corrected his timeline at a donor dinner 18 months into their marriage, one sentence, nothing dramatic, he smiled through dessert. In the car, he drove 9 full minutes in silence. Then he said, "You will never do that to me in front of people again." His right hand left the steering wheel long enough to grip her knee through her dress, hard enough to bruise. He released her immediately. The car kept moving. Apology flowers arrived the next morning. Therapy language followed, stress, pressure, the weight of what he carried. She believed it, not because she was foolish, because abuse was confusing when it wore a pressed suit, spoke softly, and gave you a life other women complimented on social media. Then she got pregnant, and he turned the pregnancy into marketing. He announced it to donors before she had told half her family. He talked about legacy in interviews while moving money she could not trace. By the second trimester, she had noticed transfers labeled event reserves and consulting holds that matched nothing on any company calendar she could access. She asked once. He kissed her forehead and told her not to stress the baby with grown business. She asked again 2 weeks later. He stared at her for so long she had to look away first. That night, after he slept, she got out of bed and started printing everything she could reach. Not because she had a full plan yet, because her body already knew. Now, back in that corridor, the world narrows to pressure and cold, and the impossible fact that this man once drove across Charlotte in the rain for her flat tire, and is now cutting air from her lungs in a luxury mall at 2 in the afternoon. She claws at him, her nails drag skin he does not release. Her son lurches inside her, hard, desperate, and through the blur of her narrowing vision she realizes with perfect cold clarity. He is still calculating. Even now, even with his hand on her throat, his eyes are not wild, they are assessing. How far is security? How loud is she being? What story will he tell in the next 4 minutes? Then Brecken hits him like a wall. The impact tears Lucan off her so hard all 3 of them stagger. Tajana's knees buckle. She goes down onto the marble, one palm flat against the floor, the other arm wrapped over her belly, gasping in air that burns all the way down. Sound comes rushing back, running feet, a child crying somewhere, radio static, a woman repeating "Oh my God" in a loop. Then Lucan's voice rises above the chaos. Not frightened, not ashamed. She stole from me, search the bag, she has proprietary records. That is the second attack, not physical, narrative. Even restrained, even surrounded, he is already building the replacement story. The one where he is the victim. The one where she is unstable, hormonal, dangerous. He had written the story of her breakdown before she had done anything wrong. Brecken shoves him toward responding officers and drops to one knee in front of Tajana. His voice goes completely quiet. "Can you breathe?" She nods, then shakes her head, then coughs again. He calls for paramedics with a force that moves the entire corridor. At the edge of the crowd, a woman in a charcoal coat steps directly in front of the lounge security manager and says 4 words in a voice that leaves no room for argument. "Lock down the footage." Her name is Odelia Wren. She owns the entire luxury wing they are standing in. She built her retail company over 27 years and buried a daughter whose marriage everyone called intense until a hospital room told the truth. She noticed Lucan's hand on Tajana's arm at the planning walkthrough 2 weeks ago. The way his fingers stayed 1 second too long. She had seen that before. She knew exactly what it meant. The manager nods immediately. 2 security staff peel off toward the camera room at a run. By sunset, Lucan Pierce has hired a crisis firm, called 2 attorneys, and started telling people his pregnant wife suffered an emotional episode tied to hormonal instability. Hormonal instability. The words move through donor circles like water through a crack. By morning, 2 women from the shower are already texting Tajana versions of concern wrapped around doubt. One says she is praying for peace on both sides. Both sides, as though there are 2 sides to a hand around a pregnant woman's throat. His attorney files for reputational protection before noon, arguing that proprietary business materials were unlawfully removed during a period of heightened personal stress. The language is pristine, measured, exactly the kind that makes systems move slowly around wealthy men. Tajana sits in her hospital bed, reads the filing on her phone, and feels something settle inside her that is colder than fear and steadier than anger. He was fast. She already knew he would be fast. Brecken comes by in plain clothes that afternoon, no uniform, carrying coffee for himself because she is on limited intake, and he has remembered that detail without being told. He sits in the chair by the window and does not pretend things are fine. He's separating the assault from the documents, Brecken says. I know. Without the missing page, the financial piece looks circumstantial. I know that too. The missing page, the one that tied Lucan's personal funds directly to the Shell account, taken from her folder, she knows now, during the shower itself. He had spotted the folder, lifted the one page that mattered most, and planned to hand it off before she ever left the building. When Brecken pulled him, he had nowhere to go. He stuffed it into a gift box in the storage area behind the lounge. Odelia's head of security found it 40 minutes later. He's going to say I broke into his records, Tajana says. He already is. She looks at Brecken across the room, at the scar through his eyebrow from a football game when they were kids, at the exhaustion behind his eyes that looks like years of decisions nobody thanked him for. You were watching him for weeks, she says. I saw his name in an old disturbance file, South End, closed call, witnesses who stopped cooperating. He pauses. Then I saw the shower invitation, something felt wrong. And you said nothing. He does not defend himself. He nods once, like a man accepting the weight of something that cannot be argued away. I had worry, he says, not enough evidence to force anything open. You had me. The room goes quiet. He looks at her, and for just 1 second the officer dissolves and the cousin is simply there, raw and unprotected. Yeah, he says, I did. Tajana turns toward the window. The tears that slip out are not about forgiveness. They are about the years of smaller attacks that happened while the world moved at its normal speed, untouched and unconcerned. The door opens. Odelia Wren enters without ceremony. Dark coat, leather folder. She sets it on the overbed table and speaks without sitting down. The footage is secured. Your husband's private contact requested access. They were denied. She pauses. I also have a statement from my head of security confirming your husband searched the gift display area immediately after the incident. Fast, targeted, as if he already knew what he was looking for. Brecken sits forward. You think he tried to ditch the page? Tajana says it before she finishes thinking it. He grabbed it from the folder during the shower. When Brecken pulled him, he had nowhere to go. Odelia studies her face. You made duplicates, she says, not a question. Tajana meets her eyes. I made copies of everything, different locations, different dates, in case he found one set. Something passes across Odelia's face, not surprise. Recognition. The expression of a woman who spent years wishing someone she loved had thought to do exactly that. "My daughter used to hide spare keys," Odelia says quietly. "After she was gone, I understood why." The room holds that truth for a moment. Then Odelia opens the folder. 4 pages, not one. The first, wire transfers from a joint account into a consulting shell registered to an LLC whose mailing address matched a holding property in Lucan's own trust. Circular, designed to be invisible to anyone who did not already know where to look. The second, those same funds moving again, into an account tied to a man named only as R. In a third-party agreement, Tajana had photographed from Lucan's home office at 2 in the morning while he slept. The third page turns Brecken's face to stone. A printed text thread between Lucan and a crisis communications consultant, dated 6 weeks before the shower, Lucan describing Tajana as increasingly erratic, asking for language around maternal instability to be deployed if she became disruptive to the quarter. The consultant replying with a framework, 3 bullet points, clinical, efficient, outlining how to position a pregnant woman's behavior as a mental health concern before she could position his behavior as a crime. He had written the story of her breakdown before she had done anything wrong. Brecken sets the page down. He thought if people doubted your stability, they would dismiss whatever you brought forward. That's exactly what he thought. Monday morning, Lucan Pierce walks into a boardroom smiling. He wears charcoal gray. He greets the lobby staff. He rides the elevator with his chin level and his hands steady. He has managed harder rooms than a board review. He has not yet learned that the room is not what he is walking into. He is walking into everything Tajana kept. For the first 3 minutes he holds the room. Misunderstanding, privacy of family matters, context, discretion, compassion. He is good at this. That is always the truth about him. He is very, very good at making rooms believe him. Then Odelia nods once at General Counsel. The screen at the front of the room lights up. No music, no introduction, just the footage. The corridor, the glass railing, Tajana stepping out of the restroom, Lucan intercepting, the wrist, the pivot, the hand at her throat. The room does not gasp. That is what makes it devastating. The air simply changes temperature. One investor leans back slowly from the table. One woman covers her mouth. Lucan's composure cracks in stages. His eyes go to the screen, then away, then back. His jaw tightens. Sweat breaks at the hairline above his left temple. His hand, resting flat on the table, curls under the edge where no one can see it shaking. The second screen lights up. Text messages, maternal instability, reputational containment, the consultant's bullet points, the plan to destroy her credibility before she could use it. Then the bank documents. These are preliminary. The board packet reaches the third investor. Standard routing. She doesn't understand the... Tajana stands up. The room goes completely quiet. She does not raise her voice. She does not point at him. She does not perform anything at all. She simply stands in the cream sweater she wore home from the hospital, the pearl bracelet warm on her wrist, the one Lucan once called cheap sentiment, and looks directly at the man who spent 6 years telling her what she was worth. "I survived a man who believed my silence belonged to him," she says. One investor asks carefully into the silence that follows, "Who else knew about these transfers?" Lucan opens his mouth. No sound comes. Odelia answers. Enough people to make this much larger than him. Tajana picks up her folder. She does not wait for his face to finish falling. She does not need to see it. She walks out. Head level, back straight, pearl bracelet catching light. She does not look back once. Morning comes soft through a kitchen window, and for the first time in years, Tajana does not brace when she hears footsteps. Rain taps the glass. The kettle clicks off. Her son is in the bassinet beside the table, one tiny fist open at his side, breathing with the full confidence of a child who has only ever known safe. Peace has a sound, it turns out. It sounds like your own body finally setting something down. Brecken knocks once before entering. He carries groceries because it is Tuesday, and Tuesdays he has started doing the grocery run without being asked. He does not arrive claiming innocence of his earlier silence. He does not ask for forgiveness before it is ready to be given. He simply keeps showing up. Diapers, pharmacy runs, long silences that do not demand anything from either of them. That is how some families come back, not through speeches, through consistency. Lukin lost board protection by the end of the quarter. Criminal exposure followed the assault charge. The fraud review widened into territory his attorneys could not smooth closed. His name stopped appearing in magazine profiles. It started appearing in compliance briefings. No drama, just consequences arriving in order. One evening, Tajana found an envelope at the bottom of a redirected mailbox, his handwriting on the front. She stood at the fireplace for a long moment, the baby monitor humming, rain on the glass. She did not open it. Some answers cost more than the peace they are worth. She dropped it into the fire and watched it curl and go black and disappear. Then she went back to the kitchen where her son was waking, where the kettle needed filling, and where a life built in fear had been replaced, one quiet morning at a time, by a life built in truth. Tajana's story proves this. Control was never love. Silence was never peace. And the most dangerous abuse is often the kind that arrives dressed in money, manners, and a very good suit. He thought he was choking the life out of her in that corridor. He was only choking the lie. If this story stayed with you tonight, share it with someone who needs to remember that being doubted does not make them wrong. Being afraid does not make them weak. And the moment they choose themselves may be the most important moment of their entire life. And if nobody has told you this lately, you were never too much. You were just in the wrong room.